Welcome back. Our savoury dishes have gone down really well and now everyone's looking around wondering what else is to come. But this is really your time to shine. Blow them away with some beautiful little desserts. We're going to do a little berry cheesecake and a tiny little lemon meringue tartlet. And to get started though, we're going to start on our cheesecake and we need to make our base for it. About half a packet of arrowroot biscuits, about 100 grams of butter. So just take some biscuits and we just want to bash them up a bit, making sure you get them nice and fine now. People have lots of different ways of doing this. I'd recommend not putting it in the food processor because you can tend just to turn it into a fine little dust and then it's the pieces aren't really big enough to hold together and it'll break apart. So that's where we want it now. Just still some big chunks in there but pretty well ground down. And to this we add our butter. Just on top's fine like that. We'll pop that in the microwave for about 20 seconds. So while our base is melting away in the microwave, we'll move on to our next part, which will be the jelly for it. So for this, we're going to need half a cup of jam, 1 cup of water, and a teaspoon of gelatin. So to start off, we'll add our water to our pot. Just on a low to medium heat. We can turn it up a little bit later. And to this we're going to add 1 teaspoon of gelatin and we'll whisk this through. Because we're using jam here in our jelly, we don't need to add too much gelatin to it. So once your gelatin's combined into there, it's time to add your jam. So with your jelly, bring it up to the boil and allow it to simmer for around 2 minutes. You don't want to cook it for too long, otherwise the gelatin starts losing its properties and it won't set well. Turn that up a little bit, now it's combined well. And we can get back onto our base. So, now our butter is softened on top, we'll give this a good mix through. You don't want to completely melt your butter because then it sort of splits a bit and it's going to take a lot longer to set and it's really not necessary. But working that through, I think now we can probably grab our container we're going to set it into. So we're going to set our cheesecake into 1 large cheesecake and from there we'll cut out our mini ones. And we just want a really nice thin layer of this because remembering that these are just going to be tiny little sized cheesecakes at the end, we don't want it to be all base, we want to be able to get some nice cheesecake. And now we'll just pop this into the freezer to set. For our filling, we're going to need 150 grams of cream cheese. If you want, you can add vanilla and other flavours as well at this point. I like to just keep it simple, so I'm just adding in some caster sugar, but not too much, remembering the jelly is going to be quite sweet. So just combine that sugar through your cream cheese and put that to the side. Our jelly's ready now. It's been boiling, simmering for around 2 minutes. And so we're going to take that off and just put it into a jug. Now we'll grab our base out, which has started to set nicely in there, and we'll put our cream cheese on top. When you're cooling your base in the freezer, if it's still a little bit warm, it helps the cream cheese stick to the base. If it freezes completely, then your layers are all going to be separate, they're all going to fall apart. That like that. So now we've got a nice even coating of cream cheese on there, and we're going to pop it in the freezer for about 15 to 20 minutes to firm up. Fortunately though, I've already made one. And there it is, nice and firm. Our jelly needs to come to room temperature or just above, and that's ready to go on top. We don't want it too hot because you don't want it to melt the cream cheese. And then give it a little bit of a shuffle, a little bit of a shake just to get a nice even coating over the top. I think that can also do with even a smear as well as a shuffle and a shake. So spreading that out. So now I'm going to pop this into the fridge for around probably an hour to 2 hours, just till your gelatin's set nice and firm. When your gelatin's set, it's ready to come out and portion up. So moving on now to our lemon meringue tart. For this we're going to need 1 heaped teaspoon of corn flour, half a cup of sugar, the juice of 2 lemons, 2 eggs, and half a cup of water. We'll also need a little bit of butter and a little bit of flour. So to start off, we need to make our lemon curd because we need that to cool down for our tarts. So put your pan onto a medium to high heat and add all of your ingredients except for your eggs. Give that a good stir now. And once it's well combined, we're just going to leave this to come up to the boil, and then we'll want it to simmer for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. It won't take long. For this lemon curd, we just need the yolks, but we're going to use our whites for the meringue later. So it's important to separate them well, making sure you don't get any yolk in your whites, because then they're not going to whip up that nicely. There's our yolks. Just pop your whites aside, but just keep them at room temperature. So now our mixture is starting to come to the boil. So we'll take that off the heat and add our egg yolks and butter, making sure now we whisk this really quickly. You don't want your egg yolks to split into like little scrambled egg. So you've got to stir it really quickly and you shouldn't have a problem. So there it is, beautiful colour and beautiful flavour. I'm just going to pop that in the fridge to cool down and we'll start rolling out our pastry. So you'll notice that this pastry is our scraps from earlier. Just a really good chance now to use those up. So when rolling this out again, we've already sort of played with the layers a little bit now. So you don't want to play around too much. Just a little bit of flour, rolling it out. So onto a board so we don't scratch our bench. Just take a little ring cutter and cut out your little tart cases, just like that. So now I'm going to pop these onto a baking tray ready to go in the oven. Remembering to spread them out because they are going to puff up and we don't want them catching onto each other. And just like with our tarts before, just run a fork into them. Now we just pop these into the oven at 180 degrees for around 4 or 5 minutes, just so they puff up nicely. Then we'll add our lemon curd and finally our meringue, which we need to make. So take your egg whites from before and your leftover sugar and start whisking. So now that these are forming soft peaks like this, it's time to start adding our sugar. Just gradually add your sugar, just a little bit at a time, working it through. If you notice now, the meringue is starting to get quite a sheen on it, and that's what we're after. That shows it's taking the sugar in, and the sugar's actually dissolving, and that's what we want. So now our meringue has firm peaks. You can see when you lift it, it holds its peaks. Good way to test this, hold it above your head. If it doesn't end up all over you, then it's good to go. We're just going to pop that into a piping bag so we can get some really fancy looking results at the end. Star nozzle looks good because we're going to caramelise the meringue later on, and that gives some good definition. So I'll put that aside because I think my tart cases should be just about ready, which they are. So pull out your little mini tart cases. So now we need to add our lemon curd to this, which is firmed up nicely. Just add a little bit onto each. It helps if you just sort of pierce the middle of the tart shell, because then a little bit soaks inside. I might actually even just do it beforehand, just like that, just so you can get a little bit to go inside the tart. So onto them like that. A little bit more for that last one. And now comes our meringue. So on top of your tarts, just hold it above it so it drops onto it, and then lift off. On top, then lift off. And finally, we're going to finish them off with a brulee gun. If you don't have a brulee gun, you can quickly pop them back into a really, really hot oven, but you definitely get better results from a brulee gun. So I'll pop these all on here. And now we can get out the cheesecake. So just running it, your cutter straight in, nice and firm, get through the base. And now just push it out the top of your cutter, and there one by one we're going to have beautiful little mini cheesecakes. And And what a fantastic way to finish things off. I think they look absolutely brilliant and they're sure to impress any guest and probably yourself. If you need any of tonight's recipes or any of our other recipes, they're all available on the website. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next week. Yeah.